Hey guys, what's going on? I am back again with another shortcuts video. I'm really excited for this one. We're going to take a look at 3 different shortcuts, and I think all 3 of them have something very different going on, so I think you'll get something out of them no matter what your skill level is with Siri Shortcuts. So let's kind of get into it. The first one we're going to do is really simple. It's going to ask us what we want to get at a grocery store. Then it's going to add it to our task manager, grocery list app, whatever you want to use. Pretty easy, pretty simple. So the very first thing we're going to do here is do ask for input. So this action right here is going to prompt with a question. So we'll type in things to buy. Then the default answer, we're going to leave blank. If you wanted to fill in part of this, it'll give you like part of the answer. So if you always wanted vegan frozen food, you could just type in vegan, and then you could type in what frozen food you wanted afterwards if you wanted that to do it that way every single time. But I'm going to leave that blank. So now if we were to run this, it's going to ask us for the thing to buy. I'm just going to say pizza, because who doesn't like pizza? And then it's going to return the value of pizza. But it doesn't really do anything because we didn't tell it to go anywhere with it. So my task manager of choice is things. Like I was talking about, you can use any one that has been updated to support Siri Shortcuts. If it hasn't been updated to support Siri Shortcuts, you can kind of fall back on the default reminders app right now. That absolutely works. But hopefully task managers, grocery list apps, these are prime apps to take advantage of Siri Shortcuts. So if it's not updated now, hopefully it gets updated soon. So here's what we're going to do. So we have our ask for input, and that gives us the value of whatever we answer the question with. But we want that to be the title. We want that to be able, when we look at our task manager, we want that to be the thing of, oh yeah, that's what I need to buy. So our title's right here. And this is where variables come in. And see, when Shortcuts, before it was bought by Apple, it was called Workflow. And if I ever mix up and say Workflow, I do apologize. It's been in my head for so long. But before it was bought by Apple, and we had to do this thing called set variable. And basically what it would do is very typical, very programming thing, is it would take the action block that we had, and then it would set the variable for that action. And then we could call that variable anywhere else in our shortcut or workflow back then. So I could do this, and I could just call it question. And then I could come down here and right down in this title bar, I could just hit question. And there you go. Now we have our ask for input. It'll set it as a variable. It'll title it question. But that's not the only way to do it. In fact, it's not even really the proper way to do it anymore for something this simple especially. Now I'm going to go ahead and delete this variable. And you'll see the variable in the things action turns red. That means it's not available anymore. The proper way to do this, and I talked about this a little bit in my last video, is to use a magic variable now. A magic variable basically neglects the way that we need to use the set variable. We don't need that anymore. We just can use the magic variable. So we're going to hit this 1 button right down here, and we kind of get this different view. And these blue circles right here, we have a pretty simple shortcut right now, so we only get one of those. But if we had a much longer one, I'm sure we'd have more. These are now options for becoming variables. So we're going to hit this right here. And you can see right there, it gets the ask for input, just like how we had the question in there before. So now this is one less step in our shortcut, which for this shortcut really isn't that big of a deal. But if you had a much longer shortcut, having more and more actions makes it harder to read and see what's going on, especially if you're having to ever debug it. That makes things a little difficult. The other thing too for readability is leaving it the default name, ask for input. If we had multiple ask for inputs, that can make things kind of hard, because what ask for input is that? So we can rename this one right here. And I'm going to rename it to question. Pretty simple, but I know exactly what it is. Actually, you know what? I'm going to rename it to question buy. That way, I know it's a question, and I know it's related to buying something. So pretty simple. So now if we were to run this, we can hit this. We type in pizza. And it opens our task manager, but see, in things, it wants to add it to my inbox. Then it prompts us with this whole dialog box for wanting to save it. I don't want to do it that way. Also, I want to know what grocery store or what store I need to get this from. I mean, I don't want to limit this just to groceries. What if I need to, go buy insect repellent or pillows or something, something completely different. So I'm going to get another ask for input. And we're going to say, what store? Let me fix that. What store? Okay, so here in the notes section, I'm going to set another magic variable. So another ask for input. And again, see if we wouldn't have renamed those and somebody else came back, it would have been which ask for input is this? This is why it's proper to rename them. So I'm going to rename this and I'm going to call it question store. Okay. So that renames the that variable right there. So we have our two variables renamed, but it also added it to our inbox. I don't want it to be in my inbox and things. I have my own special project for that. So I have this shopping list project right here. You can kind of see it's got the emoji. Emojis can kind of throw these things off. You have to make sure you copy copy the whole thing. It will parse the Unicode of the emoji. So that's fine. So I'm going to grab that right now. We're going to go back to shortcuts. And under list, it's right here. And then the project heading, it was, I don't know if you guys saw it or not. It's under life. Pretty generic, but you know, it's right there. So I'm just going to call it life. Okay. Now, the last thing we're going to do is this edit in things option right here. I'm going to turn that off. So basically what that means is it's not going to prompt us to do anything with it in things because you know what? We're filling all the information in here in shortcuts. So we're going to fill this in. So we're going to run this and we're going to say, we're going to say pizza, hit OK. And then it's going to say what store? I'm going to say Vaughn's, which is the generic local grocery store here. You guys kind of saw it for a split second, but we'll go back in things. And you can see now it's a pizza, and if we tap on it, it says Vaughn's right underneath it. So there you go. We could do all sorts of different stuff with this. We could put URLs in there. So if you do all your grocery shopping online, you could put URLs to your stuff, whatever you need to do. That's it. That's kind of it for this very basic add to shopping list one. All right, so the next shortcut that I'm going to do here, I got the idea from Matthew Casanelli. He actually used to work at Workflow back in the day. He actually built a gallery. If you go into shortcuts and check out the gallery, those are him. He built those. So he really knows his stuff. So I got the idea from him on this one, and I've tweaked it a little bit to kind of fit me, and I think kind of fit you guys as well a little bit more. The idea for this one is a lot of people work, and when they work, they can't sit in silence, and they also don't want to be disturbed. It's, important for them to have some sort of music going on or noise, and you also want Do Not Disturb to be on. So let's kind of take a look at what this is going to take. So I have a few different kinds of working. So the first one I'm going to do is menu. This action right here, choose from menu, is an important one to kind of know and get used to. This will give you multiple avenues to run down. So right now you kind of see it says 1, 2, that kind of thing. So I'm going to say writing music. I'm going to say editing music. And then I'm going to say, for the third one, I'm going to say my day job. I'm going to say podcasts. Podcasts, I love podcasts, but it's hard for me to listen to a podcast while I'm writing or editing. My day job is a little bit more forgiving that I can kind of focus on what I'm working on with having a podcast in the background. So these are the kinds of different things that we're going to focus on right here. First off, let's do a couple of things. When we want this shortcut to run, we want Do Not Disturb to happen. So we're going to use Do Not Disturb first up. So let's come over here. And we're going to do set Do Not Disturb, and we're going to turn that on. Great. So now the way it's set is if we run writing music, it'll run until we turn it off. But you know what? I like to write for blocks of time and then, kind of take a break. So I think what we could do is how about we have Do Not Disturb only set for a certain period of time. I think that would be kind of cool. So let's do this. Let's get date. So what this will do is it's going to get the current date. Then we're going to do just date. And then we're going to change this to 40 minutes. So what this will do is it'll take the date and then add 40 minutes to it. Then we're going to switch Do Not Disturb to time. And again, this is where variables come in. So we're going to hit the magic variable button. There we go. And we're going to pick adjust date right there. And then we're going to rename it to writing 40. Probably not the greatest name, but that's okay. So now if we were to run writing, it would set do not disturb for 40 minutes. That's great, but we want a few other things to happen. We want music to play, but you know what? Also, I have lights in my office, and I want those lights to come on as well. So let's come over here to home, and I'm going to do run home scene. The Siri suggestion actually has what I want, but I want to show you guys this part. So we're going to hit choose home, and then the scene we want to run. So we could hit ask one run right here, and then it would prompt us what scene we want. But I actually know what scene we want. So I'm going to hit clear right there, and I'm going to hit choose again, and I'm going to hit office lights on. So now when we run the scene, I'll turn office lights on, it'll get the date, add 40 minutes to it, and then set do not disturb for 40 minutes. This is great. I'm liking this so far, but we need to have some music. So I obviously, I don't know what the volume is currently set to on it. So we're going to set the volume, and I don't want it too loud, but I don't want any background noise getting through. So that should probably be good enough. We're also going to do get playlist. So we can get the playlist that we want. I like mashups when I write. Everyone's a little different. Some people like soundtracks, some people, whatever. You can pick the playlist you want. For me, I'm going to pick my mashup playlist, and then we're going to do play music. Great. So it'll turn on home, it'll set the date, it'll add 40 minutes, set the volume, create playlist, it'll run the playlist. That's fantastic. So I'll write for 40 minutes, I write for my 40-minute chunk, play the music, and then everything goes. So that's pretty cool. I like that so far. The other thing, so we could do the same thing. We could come over here if we wanted to do podcast. We could, under podcast, we'd start playing my podcast of choice. So now that's my playlist in Overcast. It'll start playing that, which is pretty handy to have. Editing music, my editing music. Let's classic rock while I'm working. Volume, though, when I'm editing video, I want the volume to be down. I don't want it to be loud. I just want it to be just enough in the background. I need to be able to hear the audio and what I'm saying, but I just want it just enough in the background. I get a little stir crazy when a room is silent. And then we want play music. So that's great. So now we have our three different kind of working situations, and these are fantastic. So I'll write my music, or for writing I have my music, I have editing I have my music, and then my day job. But you know what? I have a couple of other things. I have my podcast, Slab of Glass, link in the bio if you guys haven't heard about it. And I have another shortcut that'll basically do podcast time. In fact, here, look, we'll come out of here and let us see if we could find it here. Podcast time. There is a search bar up here, which makes things really handy. So we can come in here. And this is actually kind of interesting. And I know there's better ways of doing this, but I kind of wanted to experiment with a couple of things. So this shortcut will get the network details if it starts to equal _U, which is part of my SSID for my wireless network. It'll turn on airplane mode, set do not disturb, turn the volume up, and push a notification out that says time to podcast. If it doesn't see that, because airplane mode might already be on, it'll turn airplane mode off, it'll set do not disturb off, turn the volume back to 100%, and say podcast done, and then it'll remind me not to forget to upload my track to Dropbox. So this is pretty cool, but I don't want to recreate that. So if we come back here into our shortcut, no programmer should recreate their work. So we're going to add a section right here to call podcast, and then we're going to come over here to shortcut. And we're going to say run my shortcut. And we're going to hit choose. And we'll type podcast into the search and say podcast time. So now what this will do is if I run this, it'll bring up the menu. It'll say podcast. And then I'm afraid to do it because it does a whole bunch of stuff. So if I do it, I'm afraid it'll break the recording. But if it does it, we run through and do the podcast. So that's kind of cool. So you can run a shortcut within another shortcut. That's pretty handy, and I really like that. But you know what? Also, I have this other shortcut that's over here that says work over. And we're going to do some other stuff here. We're going to include that shortcut in this one as well. So we're going to do work time over, and we'll include that shortcut as well. Run shortcut. Work over. So there you go. So now we have our multiple shortcuts. We have our huge menu, sort of run shortcuts within this shortcut. It works for all of my different kinds of working. This is great. I really like this. This is pretty fantastic, and you can really make it work for you. This is very specific to me. Obviously, everyone doesn't edit video, record a podcast, or write, so you can make it work for whatever you do. All right, so the last shortcut we're going to do is kind of it's saving URLs for later, basically. So we're going to take URLs, we're going to get the article from the web page if there's an article, we're going to get the title, and then we're going to have it save into a task manager, reminder. You can use a read it later service if you want, but I'm going to use things for this one, so it can kind of really show us a few things. And we're going to take a look at basically everything we just learned in the past two shortcuts, and we're going to kind of see how else you can implement them. So the first thing we need to do is we need to get URL from input. So this will take the URL from whatever web page or app or wherever we're at, it gets it from. Then we're going to use get diffbot article from web page, and this is a built-in action. And we're also going to do get diffbot details of article. Okay, so this will get the article from the web page if there's an article. Then this will get, and then we can choose right here. We're going to pick title, but there's a bunch of other options you can get as well. And then we're going to implement a menu. So let's do menu. Choose from menu. And here's our options. So we're going to do 3 of these. We're just going to do 3 to make things a little simpler. The personal one that I'm using is a little more intense than this, but this is just going to be enough just to kind of keep things simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to do add to things. And so we are going to do look at :space. So now this is where all of our variables will come in. So let's do magic variable, and let's get details of article. And again, we're going to rename this to article name. Okay, so there's that. We also, let's get the project that we want. We want read review. So we want that, and that is under next actions. Great. And there's no emoji there, so we don't have to worry about any weird Unicode. So that'll save it there. Then if we want a tag, we can put that in there. I'm not going to worry about that. Again, I am going to turn off edit and things. And then for notes here, we want the URL. So we're going to do get magic variable, URL. And since it's URL, I'm not going to bother renaming it because that's pretty simple. Then we can fill in the rest of these. Pretty much the same thing. I just would change the title and where it's being saved to and things like that. But this is pretty much it. So you can kind of run through and do this all for other different stuff. So you can get URLs from the App Store if there's apps you want to save for later, or if there's stuff you want to buy that isn't from like Amazon and doesn't have like a wish list or something you check back at, you can put that in there. That's pretty much that. I won't rehash that whole thing because it's pretty much the same thing, just changing the projects in the list, and that kind of varies between the task manager and stuff that you're using. But let's go ahead and run this. I'm gonna go ahead and hit done here. Okay, so we're in Safari now, and we're gonna go ahead and run this shortcut. So I'm gonna hit the share sheet, go to shortcuts. I saved this one in here. We're gonna scroll to the bottom here. I called it save for later, just so we knew what it was. And it's gonna get the article, and then we're gonna say read later. And there you go. So right here is the article. There's the URL right in there. We can tap on it. It's going to load. I already had it open. And there you go. It works. It's really fantastic. You can use anything that has a URL you can use with this, so you can save it all for later. You can make as many categories as you want. What I just do with the categories is I have them saved to a different place, or I have like the look at or whatever change. So you can kind of see I have a couple of apps up here saved, and they say app with their name right there. So that you can kind of do that. There's the to buy. So when I'm kind of glancing at stuff, you can kind of see what I am talking about right there. And then what I did to make this run from the share sheet, just so you know, because I didn't cover this in my last one, is you come up here to Control Center, you just turn on show and share sheet. So by default, it's set up to show and widget for pretty much all of them. Go ahead and turn that off. You can hit show and share sheet. Then you can come over here to this accepted types, and you can tell it what to do. So we can tell it we don't need contacts, we don't need emails, images, no, files, no, iTunes, no. Actually, iTunes products, yeah, we would. Media, yeah, we might want that if there's a URL attached to it, things like that. So you can kind of come through and tell it what to run against. So it won't show up in the share sheet if it can't run against that. So that's kind of nice and kind of keeps things a little more organized. So these are the 3 shortcuts I kind of wanted to show you guys. If you have any more shortcuts that you want to see, find me on Twitter. I'm at Chris_Lolly. If you have anything other stuff that I would like to cover, let me know there as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great day.